On today's Newsmakers, Dr. Ben Carson's warning, near-death experiences, and fighting anti-Semitism. That and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each and every week to bring you interviews with your favorite pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable news figures. On today's Newsmakers, we're starting off with Dr. Ben Carson. He's featured in CBN's new documentary, The Revival Generation, and he joins us to share his warning to America and also to reveal what's leaving him encouraged about where we are right now. Here is Dr. Ben Carson. Dr. Carson, why did you want to be involved in the Revival Generation?
Well, I've been thinking for a long time that we need a revival. We've had 4 of them in the history of our country, usually around pestilence or war. We got all kinds of things going on. It's time for one. And I've been seeing some really encouraging signs as I travel around the country, particularly among young people. And I think many of them are saying, well, we've experimented, we've seen where the other way leads, and it's not a good place. So maybe it's time to go back to our roots. And when you think about it, our founding document says that our rights come from our Creator. Why would we run away from that and try to be like everybody else? When you think about, we rose from nowhere to the pinnacle of the world in record time. And a large part of that was because of our belief system. So why would we throw that away? And I think people are starting to understand that. That doesn't mean that we don't still have some substantial battles with Marxism and socialism. But I think the good guys will win in the long run.
When you look at what's changed in the past, not even year, the past few months, what goes through your head, your heart, your mind?
Well, for one thing, we have new leadership in our country. I asked President Trump not too long ago, how are you able to have so much energy? I said, you're in your late 70s. Most people at that time, they're like in a rocking chair on the porch.
Relaxing, right, yeah.
Exactly. And he thought for a minute, he said, it's God. And, to have a president who will acknowledge that is good. Now, some people on this level will say, yeah, but he's just saying that because he's an evil guy. Well, in their mind, no matter what he did, it would be evil. And one of the things that's very important and that I see coming through the president is that he's no longer easy to manipulate. Before they could just push the button and send them into a tizzy. And now he's much more calm and measured, sends them into a tizzy.
So you see a change in him from last time around?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So my last question for you, and this is a big one because these changes are happening, they're very positive, but some have worried that, is the church ready for this? Are Christians ready for all of these new young people coming in with questions? They're looking for answers. Do you feel that we're equipped? And if not, what should we be doing to be ready for what is currently happening before us?
Well, there are a lot of people asking questions like that, and that's good because that's how you make progress. Ask the questions and don't shy away from them. And understand that it's possible to have disagreements and still work together. We are not enemies. If you take the first letter of each one of those, Wayne, we've let hate and division flourish for a long time. It's waxed. Now it's time to let it wane. I think we're realizing that because the only way our nation can really be brought down is from internally. It can't be brought down externally. We have too many weapons, but we can easily be divided. And Christ said it, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's really the big battle. Can we get people to understand that what Marxists do is they divide you? They divide you on the basis of race, age, income, gender, religion, political affiliation, you name it, divide them, have them at each other's throats while they carry out their nefarious purposes.
Well, I lied because now I have another question, and this is the final question. Are you confident that we can win that battle and stop that division from happening?
I'm very confident. My only concern is not that we're going to be victorious, but that we will go too far, and that we will decide that we need to legislate morality. That has happened in the past, as you know, and it's created some of the greatest issues of bloodshed in mankind's history. We don't want to go there.
Well, Dr. Carson, I appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you for joining us.
All right, it's been a pleasure. Appreciate what you do.
You can watch Dr. Carson in The Revival Generation, streaming right now on the CBN Family app. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Next up, Randy Kay has an incredible story of dying and visiting heaven. He recently joined Jen, Lilly, and I for our Into the Supernatural podcast to share all the details. We're showing part of that conversation right now on Newsmakers.
Okay, Randy Kay, I am so excited to have you on our podcast today. So thank you so much for being here. I know Billy knows your story, but I have not actually heard it. And I am really fascinated by near-death experiences. And apparently you have a good one. So can you just take us back to the moment that you realized you were dying, what was happening physically, and what was happening spiritually?
Yes, Jen. Well, good to meet you, and thank you for having me. I was flying back from the East Coast, had nothing really to drink, very little sleep. Woke up in the middle of the night, had a swollen calf, could barely walk. Went for a bike ride of all things, which I should not have done because that exacerbated the problem. I went up the coast of San Diego on the bicycle and could barely breathe. My calf was about 1.5 times its size. I thought at first it was asthma. So I took my inhaler, and that didn't have any effect. So I knew this was different than what would be an asthma attack or something of that nature. And so I made my way to the doctor's office, and during the examination, I collapsed. And then I was in the emergency room. In the emergency room, I was barely able to breathe, and it was discovered that I was in very bad shape. In fact, the ER physician said that I was a walking dead man because I had let this go so long.
Wow.
By the time I had made it into the emergency room, I had 7 clots, one near my heart, 6 that were blocking the pulmonary artery, which is the main blood flow to the lungs. So the only thing to do really at that point was just pump me with anticoagulants. And meantime, the patient next to me had MRSA, which is a drug-resistant bacterial strain.
Absolutely.
And was escorted out of that area. But by that time I had contracted the MRSA. It had actually gotten into my bloodstream. So that exacerbated the problem to the point where I was clotting throughout my body. The physician tried to draw blood from my arm and could not. It was like a traffic jam.
Yes, keep going. I'm just, wow. They can't draw your blood. My mind is already blown. I'm excited.
And it was the first time I'd realized that what the physicians were telling me was that there was a possibility, they didn't want to use the term probability, that I would die, because I remember sitting in the coffee shop with my wife before all of this happened, 2 weeks before, and we were lamenting the fact that we had lost much of what we had in terms of our own personal finances because of the drug withdrawal, zeroed out much of our finances. And I said, at least we have our health. 2 weeks later, I was dead. This was survival mode.
Okay.
Sure.
And at the point, I'm not thinking, God, where are you? Anything of that sort. It was just, I can't breathe.
So as this is going on, it's reaching this inevitable conclusion, and it wasn't the final conclusion, but of a death, essentially. I mean, take us through those moments and what happened.
Yeah. So immediately my body went still. And initially it felt like a tugging at my hospital gown. And later I would come to realize that was my spirit leaving my body.
Oh, wow.
And then I became a third party to my body. So I was looking down on this still body. I knew that was my body, but that wasn't me. I did not have any sense that was me, because I was in a different place. And this light was shining over me, and it was pulling me. It was pulling me upwards. And I was just kind of going with the flow, if you will, at that point. And initially, I was being pulled up through this galactical space, for lack of a better way of putting it. It was pulling me at a rapid speed. The next visage I saw was a kind of a surreal background, and I saw these figures that were warring before my eyes. I saw on the right side, I saw these towering figures, which I later came to understand were angels. On the left side, I saw these other towering figures that were more decrepit looking. I later came to understand that those were demons. They were warring over my soul. And as I had prayed about this after the fact, because I was just assimilating all of this, I wasn't really thinking about what was going on. I realized I had entered into this period of death, after death, at a point where of a crisis of faith. And so there was a warring over my soul. I was born anew. I taught in church. Mm-hmm. I was a Christian, but still there was something going on that was beyond me at that point. I was just a spectator. And I knew, implicitly, as the angels were kind of gaining the victory, because I could see them warring over, and the light was shining on them, mm-hmm. as well as me. Not on the left side, the demons, as I knew them to be, but the light was on the angels and myself. I knew to cry out the name of Jesus Christ.
Right.
Wow.
And as soon as I cried out the name of Jesus Christ, I was side to side with this figure who I knew was Jesus. And I could feel his soft whiskers on the right side of my face. And I just caved. I just collapsed, and I was sobbing. I knew I was in the presence of God, and the first thought was, so this is love. So this is love. The person of love was so impactful to me that I knew that this was love, consummate love. And at that point, he had hugged me so tightly. Oh my goodness, that hug. Oh, and then he brought me on a journey, and it was a journey of my life. Uh-huh. And it dated back into my early childhood. And there were different vignettes that he showed me. And I realized that he was showing me how he had redeemed the various parts of my life, because I eventually had become an agnostic. And he showed me how he'd been with me every moment of my life, bringing me to this point.
For the full interview with Randy Kay, you can visit supernaturalshow.com. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, we are welcoming Zach Bauer. Zach is the CEO of Passages, an organization that equips young people to fight anti-Semitism. Let's welcome Zach to Newsmakers. Zach, there is a lot going on in the world right now, a lot of anti-Semitism raging, not just in the Middle East, but we're seeing this around the globe. Also here in America, some really shocking incidents continue to happen, and we're going to get into all of that. But you recently held an event where Christian students learned how to take a stand against anti-Semitism. Tell us about this event.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me on the show today, Billy. It's great to see you. This past weekend, we had what we call our Passages DC College Experience, and we had 150 students from around the country attend a conference here at the Museum of the Bible, and they heard from a variety of speakers, from Steve Woodcock to Steve Green, a message from Vice President Pence, Will Scharf, White House Staff Secretary, and then there were other guests throughout the weekend. But the main goal was to train and equip these students to be able to go back to their campuses and be effective pro-Israel advocates, and to be able to identify anti-Semitism on their campuses. And one of the guests we actually had was a CEO from Honest Reporting, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not, but what they do is they train individuals how to tell if there's a news article or a media post, that how to detect if there's anti-Semitic bias in it, and what's real and what's not. I know we had last week, there was that huge story that went viral of the photo of the child in Gaza from the New York Times. And it comes out later that we find out that child had a pre-existing medical condition. And that was just one of the examples that she shared, that we shouldn't believe what we see right off the bat. We need to dig deep, find the facts. And it was very insightful and informative. In addition to those speakers, we had advocacy training sessions, teaching students, how, when they go back to campus, how can they be an advocate, what they can be doing there. And these students, a combination of them, were new to Passages. Some have been to Israel with us this year, and some of them were supposed to go, but we unfortunately had to cancel because of the Israel and Iran war. But overall, it was an incredible weekend, and hopefully we'll have some engaged Christian students going back to their campuses, ready to stand up and advocate on behalf of Israel and the Jewish people.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the current events, but talk a little bit more about Passages Israel, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're doing, and obviously this is work you were doing before this chaos unfolded of late, but talk a little bit about that so people can get an idea of what it is you do. Sure,
be happy to. So Passages was founded back in 2016, and we've been nicknamed the Christian Birthright. So back in our earlier years, we were sending thousands of students to Israel per year. And then, of course, once COVID hit, some of the travel was not happening on a regular basis. And once things started getting up and running again, October 7th happened. And there was travel restrictions, and we weren't able to send as many students again. But what October 7th allowed us to do was to refocus some of our priorities. We're not only just going to be sending Christian students to Israel, but with the rise of anti-Semitism that we're seeing on our college campuses, we want to make sure that the students that we're sending and accepting into our program are going to become effective pro-Israel advocates. So the Israel trip is obviously the highlight of their experience with Passages, but leading up to the trip itself, they're required to take rigorous coursework. There's an interview process they have to go through with our team. And then we'll train them throughout the year that they're with us in terms of how to be an effective advocate, what they can be doing on their campus before the trip, after the trip. And during this whole year, we try to identify, those students that we think have the most potential to be effective leaders in their communities and eventually into their careers, wherever that may be. So October 7th was really a wake-up call for us. While it's great to send Christian college kids to Israel, not only for them to grow in their faith and their walk with Christ, we want to make sure that we're sending kids there that are going to come back and be forceful, impactful advocates for Israel and standing up against anti-Semitism.
Yeah, right now it's such an important thing to be training young people, and particularly Christians, to be standing up against anti-Israel sentiment, anti-Semitism. It's really alarming to watch even some people, it used to sort of be confined to more one side of the aisle, but it seems like politically it's popping up on both sides of the aisle right now. What has you most alarmed when it comes to the level of anti-Semitism that we're currently seeing?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I started in this position in January, and when I first started, Our main concern was, addressing anti-Semitism on the left. And we knew there were some factions on the right that there was kind of boiling under the surface. We were seeing some comments made and heard from some prominent figures, some anti-Semitic or anti-Israel sentiments. But even in the last few months, to your point, it's just seemed like it's kind of going on an overdrive. It's we're now taking it from both sides, the left and the right. And giving these students that are right-leaning students at colleges and universities, we want to make sure they're hearing the facts. I know they're listening to people on podcasts and other avenues. We want to make sure that they have the facts and are not going to be easily swayed to believe some of the things that they're hearing. And to your point, it's going to be tough. We have a lot of work ahead to do, but I'm encouraged because I'm sure you've seen the data that Gen Z especially, there's been a turn towards faith. There's been a decline over generations where Americans have been less involved in their faith and their church. But that's kind of taken a stop here with Gen Z. And it's encouraging because these kids that are turning towards their faith, right now they're in that stage where they can be molded and their opinions can be shaped. So getting the messages and the facts and teaching them, why as a Christian it's important to support the Jewish people and stand with Israel is critical right now, because now they're in their formative stages, of their faith and their walk with Christ. And, trying to address this right now is an urgent matter. And that's what we're determined to do.
Well, Zach, I so appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Billy. It's great to see you.
You can find out more about Passages at passagesisrael.org. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel for the full interviews you saw on today's episode. You also want to make sure to check out one of our new documentaries. It's called Investigating the Supernatural Miracles. You can watch that on the CBN Family app as well. In that film, we traveled across America to document some of the most amazing claims of miracle healings. You can head on over to cbn.com/supernatural. You can also check out the Revival Generation on that same app, the CBN Family app. As for this show, we'll see you again.